Hey, what's up to YouTube? This is Crazy Magic Hawkman. Today, I got a video review to do.
Delirium, and he gets to kick off with
These two dudes are battling
the hand of Stuart Wright.
for,
he
I don't
is
know,
on Simic
Magic
ramp,
the Gathering.
so we're going to see him doing some awesome things as soon as
And
he
right
gets his
now,
lands all
if you can
sorted.
see
And there's
that,
already
it's
some of
pretty
those awesome things
much.
in hand. 2 copies of Ugin the Spirit Dragon. Mrs. Pilgrimages, they were the ones that are going to help get him there. And now that Yol knows what he's up against and knows where he's going with this, he takes the Pilgrimage quite happily. Already a game up, Yol. So if he can just score one more game win, that'll be enough for him to take the match.
And it's impressive because this matchup is usually really bad for the Sultai Delirium deck. Traditionally, mid-range versus ramp, the ramp deck tends to be quite far ahead. Stuart's hand is a little weak, though. Definitely will need another land. And that hand was one of the most Fotzie's proof hands possible.
And also check out old Josh plays Magic
I know that it's
well.
one of the cards that as soon as the format was announced, there were lots of people eyeballing specifically this discard.
I'm not giving any shout-outs because I'm really sorry. So
way of keeping all sorts of decks honest.
It's kind of hard. The most played deck in the format
plays Fotzie's and Univolts.
It's my ear.
And for good reason. That combo of pressure and disruption is always so strong.
Sorry, I'm shaky.
A whole host of different card types going to the graveyard here. Delirium, important in part for the likes of Traverse the Ulvenwald, but also we see Emrakul the Promised End there. And Emrakul the Promised End, if you get to cast it at roughly sort of the normal level of acceleration for it, it can be a big problem for a lot of decks in this format.
Hold on a second. I'm going to put this on pause. Put this right here. Put you on pause for a little bit. There. Don't fall.
Stuck in here, and here we have a new card from Theros Beyond Death, and it's actually a card that there are 4 copies of in both of these decks. That is Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath.
Yeah, essentially, both decks want this card because it's a way to... for the Delirium deck, it just has so much synergy, right? You have Satyr Wayfinder plus Uro. That's a way to make sure that you get extra value from that card. The fact that you can mill it with Wayfinder makes it extremely powerful. Plus, you want to make sure that you're hitting those land drops and having an engine for the late game. In Stuart Wright's deck, it's a little different. The Explorer actually the first Explorer does not have that much value, so to speak. The first land use of it. However, it does turbo very fast. With access in the deck to Cavalier of Thorns and Satyr Wayfinder, Uro is just another tool for the ramp deck to pull way ahead. We saw, by the way, Stuart here essentially pass on turn 3 rather than go for Nissa's Pilgrimage, because the idea is I want to have Mystical Dispute up, ready to counter something. Uro just wasn't worth it. And then maybe get Spell Mastery off than Nissa's Pilgrimage. But with nothing to do and wanting to make sure to hit those land drops, plays it the following turn.
Yeah, when the ramp deck starts missing land drops, that's definitely a big problem.
After CPI.
And here's the rest that can easily take the Mystical Dispute.
But
not one of the most problematic cards in Stuart's hand. That Hydroid Krasis is really bad news for Yol.
Yeah, Hydroid Krasis, we've seen it doing fantastic work in Standard. Clearly, if it's good in Standard, then it ought to be at least interesting for Pioneer. And in this instance, pretty good. At any stage in the game, it will be a relevant card. And the later the game goes on, the more mana that Stuart Wright has, the scarier it gets.
Actually, with an untapped land, Yol can get back that Uro back into play and start having a large beater. Because that Duress gives exactly the 5th card for the escape. Decides to do it even though there was a Traverse the Ulvenwald in hand.
I can tell these guys kind of want to
which makes sense to me. It just the fact that it draws cards and puts on pressure makes it worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, what are you ramping in? What's your big plan if you're not going to be casting your Uros?
On my YouTube channel, so
it makes sense here to just jam a 6/6 rather than try to get to Delirium for Traverse.
And of course, specifically being able to put additional lands into play on your hand for the battlefield.
Nice.
Yol has a hand with a lot of land in it, so he's not going to be able to put that into play and actually start leveraging it as Hydroid Krasis comes down for Stuart Wright here. X being equal to 5. All that damage dealt thus far by Sato Wayfinder, ultimately for naught. Stuart Wright back up to 20, Yol Larsen at 24, and threatening to go up rather than down as he does have that Uro to attack with.
The Uro Titan of Nature's Wrath is going to be extremely important for Yol. There's not really many ways for Stuart to interact with it and try to get it off the board. So apart from obviously Ugin the Spirit Dragon, one of the cleanest possible answers, by going -3 on it, it would exile the Uro. However, here the Uro is going to be able to attack, and if Yol can kind of secure a threat after it, might be able to take the advantage. But what's going to really matter is if Stuart gets a land that Ugin the Spirit Dragon, it's going to be a disaster for Yol Larsen.
Yeah, Ugin the Spirit Dragon, obviously very potent at dealing with a large amount of board states and very few non-coloured permanents for Yol to work with.
Right. Seems like the life totals weren't quite clear, so they're checking them.
Yeah, they're just double checking.
I really like those life
the
gain
amount of cards that were in
lands.
the graveyard, I think, to make sure that the escape on Uro was operated properly. Always safe to check as soon as you realise there's an issue, because the longer these things go on, the harder it is to reverse engineer if there's been a problem.
It doesn't seem like there was an issue with the casting of spells, but it looked like the 2 life from Thoughtseize or a dual land was not counted properly.
Alright, Yol currently with 1 spell and lots of lands in hand.
And that spell essentially gets a basic land, so we're down to Uro drawing the card we need.
It's alright, Uro's done everything that Yol wants so far, so why would he stop now?
Yeah. I like the attack with Satyr Wayfinder. Some players may not make this attack, but that extra creature in the graveyard for Traverse the Elvenwald is really important.
Wow. Awesome.
So Yol just puts an land in his play tapped with that, gains a little bit of life from his triggers. And oh, look, it's another copy of Uro Nature's Wrath. I wonder which one he's going to keep around based on the legend rule.
I would keep the one that attacked. Wait, is that another one? Well, at least Yol is getting to cycle through all these Uros and lands in hand.
All these Uros. Uro. That would have been a much better pun if I'd been able to say it better the first time round, but we'll let that one slide.
Yeah. Managed to pick up a Murderous Rider. Not really something you're going to use on a Hydroid Krasis, but generally a decent option against these ramp decks. Unfortunately, if something like Ugin the Spirit Dragon came down, that would be problematic, but at least Stuart is 2 mana off.
I mean, with all of these Uros, who's the real ramp deck here? By my count, Yol has a lot more land in play than Stuart Wright does.
That's a solid assessment right there. Unfortunately, Yol cannot do as much with all this mana as Stuart would.
That'd be kind of hard for me to pronounce. I think I should call him Joel. Joel.
Looks like we're looking at life totals again. Or maybe mana for spells.
Number of lands in play. Congratulations, Yol. You've managed to create a hot mess of our life total and land tracking system simply by virtue of playing, escaping, attacking with a big old giant. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, Stuart Wright perfectly content to cast 5/5 Hydroid Krasis all day long.
Yeah. Stuart might decide not to attack just because Yol life total is so high, and try double block. But this, if Stuart double blocks, this is going to be quite punished by Murderous Rider. That said, with access to again the Spirit Dragon in hand, that's much less problematic, since if both Hydroid Krasis die, then you get to essentially just go -3 on Ugin the Spirit Dragon and get rid of one of the Uros. It's not like as if Yol had drawn all 4 just now. Oh, wait.
Turns out you're wrong. It's all about those Uros. The Titan of Nature's Wrath just cannot get enough of Yol Larsen right now. Just wants to come say hi again and again and again.
Yeah, and drew a really important card in this Dangerous Stroke. That's going to essentially allow Yol to maybe pull ahead, depending on what Steward Red will do. The ramp deck has Mystical Dispute because it is so efficient, but at this stage of the game, it's a lot worse. Yeah, so here double block's going to get blown out by the Murderous Rider.
So the Murderous Rider kills off one of those two Hydroid Cracies. The other one then loses in a fight to a big Uro.
Yeah. And with access to Disdainful Stroke, has the answer for Ugin the Spirit Dragon.
So Murderous Rider currently off on an adventure. I wonder how much Stuart will read into the fact that the Zombie Knight is not being cast here. He knows that Yol knows that he's got Ugin the Spirit Dragon, so that's one potential reason for that to be the case.
Ow, my ribs.
That said, because Stewart cast the Hydroid Krasis for X equals 5, Yol could have put Stewart on maybe not having a land.
Okay, Cavalier of Thorns coming down for Stuart Wright. So the Cavalier does mean that he's going to be able to dig a little bit here, try and find a little bit more help.
I'm a little surprised at playing the Cavalier of Thorns here, especially with access in hand for Ugins. It doesn't stop the Uro Titan of Nature's Wrath, which means Yol will still get to pull ahead. And I mean, if Yol had a Disdainful Stroke, he just wouldn't burn it on a Cavalier of Thorns here. So I'm a little surprised at playing the Cavalier here. There's not much you can do to kind of push through Ugin the Spirit Dragon. Mystical Dispute as backup is not going to work against an opponent with this much mana. So a little surprised Stuart Wright decided to play Cavalier of Thorns here, which probably doesn't have too much of an impact over something like Ugin the Spirit Dragon. He could get countered, and he would have for certainly, but then Stuart would have been able to just jam a second one the following turn. Whereas with Cavalier of Thorns, I mean, you're still stuck with Ugin the Spirit Dragon. You're still going to try to cast it at some point. But I guess the idea here was get Uro Titan of Nature's Wrath as well as Cavalier of Thorns.
Excuse me.
We're now in a spot where it's dueling Uros. Uros on both sides. At the moment, Uro advantage. I'm loosely going to give to Yol, but we will see how long that lasts.
The big problem for Yol is with Stewart at now at 19, and with not tons of pressure, it's going to be hard for Yol to kind of push through damage.
Larsen, of course, already a game up, so he just needs to find a way of getting through this one game in order to pick up the win, going to 5-1. Getting that attack trigger once again.
Yeah, no blocks from Stewart Wright. It's because in this scenario, you want to be the one attacking with Uro every time. By blocking, you're giving up that extra card to your opponent. And when you attack, you gain free life anyway. So I think here it's correct for Stewart to not block.
And also, there's the threat of just Uro getting recast with Escape from the Graveyard. It doesn't take too much for Yol Larsen to get an extra card or so.
Wrong. Charging cord.
Shakes the world coming from Yol Larsen, who will have, frankly, unnecessary amount of mana available to him as that Planeswalker results. Just march into a 3-3. And elects to play out Murderous Rider. Oh, Stu, what are you going to do in this situation? You are in a little bit of a bind, a lot of damage to deal at this point in order to actively win the game, and now Uro has a new target that needs to be attacked, but there's also a convenient blocker. This is a troublesome spot to be in.
Attacking with Uro into Nissa seems like a good start. Probably Yol will block with the Murderous Rider since that's relatively free. And you still have Cavalier of Thorns back. Plus, Stewart just drew one of the more dominant cards here in Emrakul, the Promised End. And that's certainly going to cause a lot of problems on Yol's side.
Alright, Eldrazi deployed. The cool thing about this, of course, being that the Disdainful Stroke that Yol Larsen's been holding on to looking for a good target.
You're gonna have to use it here. Yol would have to attack into the 13-13. There just was an accident here with the cards. It'll be fixed quickly. But yeah, you definitely have to counter the 13-13, even with Yol at 38. It just represents a removal spell, essentially, since Steward would control Yol's next turn and run it into the Eldrazi. And here Steward deciding not to attack, since you want to have untapped blockers for in order to try to eat some of Yol's creatures.
Yeah, Emrakul the Promised End, of course, when you cast it, you do still get the trigger to gain control of your target player's next turn. It's a cast trigger rather than coming into play trigger, so we will get a chance to see Stuart doing what he can to mess up Yol Larsen's game plan here. Big question being, without the gigantic monster in play on his side, how much can he actually mess with what is going on for Yol?
One of the nice little aspects is that Emrakul the Promised End with Mystical Dispute means that Steward can essentially counter any blue spell and and go with, and say to Yol, please do not pay free mana for this. So if the Uro trades here, it can exile all 3 other Uros in the graveyard, and then Steward Wright could fire off Mystical Dispute and say do not pay for this, which essentially would get rid of 3 Uros in the graveyard and a lot of cards as well.
Okay, so Traverse the Ulvenwald and a Fabled Passage. So let's count the card types in the graveyard here. We have instant, land, creature. I think that's about it. No Delirium to speak of.
It would probably fail to find just cast for a green and then the card goes to the graveyard.
Wow. Yeah, this is not necessarily the most devastating of
See his life total
Emrakul's that has
YouTube.
ever been cast.
The bottom half of the screen.
Oh no, there's certainly been more
Holy
devastating
crap.
Emrakuls. When something is named Emrakul in Magic, it tends to lead to very quick game ends when it gets cast.
I mean, this one promised it. I'm not sure it's going to deliver on that promise.
Yeah. Ugin the Spare Dragon is going to definitely promise a better end.
Yeah. Okay. So these two attacking. There will now be a trigger from Uro. What have we got? It's another land.
Yeah.
Unfortunate.
And it's unfortunate for Steward that trigger is mandatory. But yeah, this should get rid of Uro Titan's Wrath for a while. So yeah, Traverse the Ulvenwald. Because, to be fair, Steward could have decided to just look at Yol's deck at this point to get exact numbers, but I think this match has lasted a while, so I can understand wanting to speed things up a bit.